The Eagles have a lot of questions now going into the offseason. They did just lose their top two coordinators going to the Colts and to the Cardinals. Shane Steichen, well, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, and Jonathan Gannon, both of them again going to the Cardinals and the Colts. So they are going to be without their top two coordinators, and they also have quite a few free agents that are going to be coming off the board, potentially moving on to other teams. We're looking at Fletcher Cox, Robert Quinn, who they traded for midseason, Brandon Graham, and Jason Kelsey both might retire. There's a lot of talks about James Bradbury going back to the Giants. Ndamukong Suh signed that one-year deal. Miles Sanders and Boston Scott, two running backs there, and backup quarterback Gardner Minshew, just to name some of the large list of free agents that the Eagles have. And they don't have a lot of cap space. Now, of course, there's a lot of ways you can manipulate the cap, cutting players, converting salaries into bonuses. So there's a lot that they can do, but they have a lot of players to try to bring back. And as things stand, according to overthecap.com, only $8 million in cap space. So it does look a bit wary if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan. I just like to come and say, try to pump the brakes a little bit on the fear. Now, obviously, that's a tall task to ask. That's a lot to ask of a team to bring back a lot of key players. Jason Kelsey was throwing a lot of money at him to try to keep him out of retirement. Does he just ultimately decide to retire? Does Lane Johnson end up being a cap casualty? Ndamukong Suh, Robert Quinn on the defensive line, Fletcher Cox on the defensive lines. You have important players at important positions that might be walking away from this Philadelphia Eagles team. You have Jalen Hurts still under contract. He's about to get paid. He's going to get paid $60 million, probably roughly around a year. You're going to have to pay him out because you don't have that fifth-year option as first-year quarterbacks do. You don't have that luxury with the second-year guys. So he's going into the final year of his deal. It feels like he just got into the league, but he's 1 year away from getting a serious extension. You have him under contract, A.J. Brown. You have Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert just got a deal. So there are some guys that you have some sort of security over, but you don't have that with a lot. And now the Eagles are in a position where they just got to the Super Bowl and are going to try to find a way to get back there. And the only team we've seen with success that seems to be just rotating through coordinators at the very least is the San Francisco 49ers. Every single year, they're seemingly getting at the very least to the conference championship game. I mean, they made the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. They've had now back-to-back conference championship appearances. If they have a better quarterback in there, or really a quarterback at all in there against the Eagles, there's a chance they win that ball game. So the 49ers have had tremendous success, but the Eagles now are going to try to replicate that. And the reason why I just start off saying why I don't fear for the Philadelphia Eagles is they know they have their quarterback situation dealt with. Jalen Hurts, comes in as second-round pick. He's now gotten them to a Super Bowl, just as we saw from Joe Burrow last year. He's developed what I've wanted him to develop, and he can then push on and develop more. He's gotten more comfortable in the pocket. He's trusts the best offensive line in football in front of him. Now we'll see what happens with that, but at the very least, that last season we saw when he had the best, he's going to step up to the occasion as well. 300 yards in the Super Bowl, 3 rushing touchdowns, 70 yards on the ground. He's going to step up. And yes, he might lose a couple offensive linemen, but the fact that he has the wheels, he can move, get out of the pocket, and he's a lot of success with his own rushing plays, even though he's most known for those QB sneaks where he's pushing through the line. He makes a lot of plays with his feet as well. He hasn't really had a signature 50, 60-yard run like we've seen from Lamar Jackson, but he's very much capable. Everybody knows he's very much capable of running the ball. So if he loses a few key offensive linemen in front of him, I think it wouldn't impact him as much as a Tom Brady, as we've seen with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is mobile enough, but nobody would ever confuse Joe Burrow for a mobile quarterback. You have that in Jalen Hurts, and then he has the wide receivers to help him out and get themselves open. Now, the combination, though, of losing both offensive linemen, like you might lose Travis Kelsey, Lane Johnson, there's a lot of talk of him being a cap casualty. If you lose the two of them, as well as there's a few guys on this list that, mostly backup offensive linemen, but still, they're guys on the team. The combination of losing offensive linemen and potentially your starting running back and backup running back with Miles Sanders and Boston Scott. I probably said Bart earlier. Boston Scott. 2 running backs potentially find themselves with a different home. Now, that does scare me a little bit. I know at the very least with the Eagles, you have your best player, your quarterback, locked under contract. You have arguably your best player on defense also locked under contract, that being Darius Slay. It's a lot of questions everywhere else. You have your 2 best players on both sides of the ball. They're good. They're not going anywhere. It's the rest that is a question mark. I feel good with the quarterback being there in place, but to replace the coordinators, to replace all those players that potentially walk and try to add to the team, we know if you're not adding, you're subtracting. If you're not getting better, if you're just staying stagnant, you're getting worse. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to have to find a lot of free agents out there, and eventually I will start to get more into free agency talk. But going into next season, I do think they're still going to have success. I do still think they're the best team in their division, which is going to be still probably the best division in football like it was this year. I think we could easily see 3 playoff teams represent the NFC in the playoffs. Washington can even sneak up in there if Sam Howell proves to be a success. If they bring in a Jimmy Garoppolo, a Derek Carr, Andy Dalton, a Jameis Winston, a bridge quarterback that can get it done by getting it to their 3 wide receivers that they have there in Washington. I expect this to be a very talented division and see multiple playoff teams at the very least get into the playoffs. And I expect one of those to be the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia definitely benefits based off the fact that it's a very weak NFC, especially now with Brady leaving. Is Jalen Hurts the best quarterback in the conference, assuming Aaron Rodgers also leaves and goes to the AFC? I have to say yes. You're looking at him. You're looking at Dak Prescott. You're looking at, is Trey Lance going to step up? Is he even going to be the starter? Are they going to give it to Brock Purdy? Kyler Murray, where's his head at any given moment? Daniel Jones, do we really trust him? Or is it the coaching that's gotten Daniel Jones? And now that Daniel Jones is going to earn reportedly around $35 million, are we going to see the same type of Daniel Jones with those expectations in New York? Because we know he doesn't have the biggest of personalities. The NFC is in a place right now that the Philadelphia Eagles can spend a little less. They can afford to not have the best offensive defensive coordinators in their division. They can afford to have some shortcomings and still feel very confident that you're going to get to the playoffs, because you're probably looking at a team like Carolina fighting for the 7th seed. You're looking at a team like Arizona fighting for the 7th seed, that they had almost nothing going right for them all season long. Even their best players at times really underplayed, underperformed. And they're losing JJ Watt as well. And nobody really wants to go there. Nobody wants to go to Arizona to even coach. Who's going to want to go to Arizona to play? The Eagles, they have the benefit of having Jalen Hurts still, even though it's briefly, even though it's just for 1 more year, he still is on his rookie deal, I believe, only making $2 million a year. So for this season, they can go all in if they would so choose to. If they can bring in, kind of like the Chiefs brought in Juju on a 1-year deal, brought in Vontaze Scantling on a cheaper deal because there was more of a guarantee for a championship there. You can go find guys that are ring searching. You're not going to get a strong 4 or 5 years out of them. That's why they brought in Ndamukong Suh. That's why they brought in Robert Quinn. You're trying to squeeze as much out of them as you can at the end of their careers, because they're doing everything. They've got their money. They've already been set financially. They probably have their families. They have a life ahead of them from football, but there's one thing that's keeping them still in the sport, and that's the opportunity to win a championship. That is something the Philadelphia Eagles provide, is the opportunity to win a championship. They didn't do it. They fell just short. They're still going to be with a young quarterback. There's a lot of guys going to be leaving, but you can sell that appeal and bring in free agents for cheaper than they could get if, let's say, they went to the Falcons. Let's say if they went to the Jets, and even some playoff teams. If you went to the Dolphins, who made the playoffs but are still clearly a few players short and are going to be signing players based off of need, whereas the Eagles, it is going to be a need, but it's only a need because the other guys are already leaving. They're not filling they can pick and probably find holes on this Eagles team from this current season, but they're virtually a perfect team. If you bring back enough of the guys, you're still a top 10 team. You're bringing back Jalen Hurts. You're bringing back A.J. Brown. You're bringing back Darius Slay, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. There's a lot of guys, a lot of talent on this team, having one of the best defenses in the league, having the single best offensive line team in the league, excuse me. And Jalen Hurts, who this year fell just short in the MVP race, I doubt he's going to get any worse. He's shown his ability to hone his craft in the offseason, to take the time aside and get better at what he needed to. He was already great at running the ball. He already had that athleticism. We knew that was going to be in play when you have Jalen Hurts as your quarterback. What we weren't sure about was, what's his accuracy going to look like? Had some of the worst accuracy numbers through his first 2 years. His first year in the NFL, I believe he was bottom 3 in terms of accuracy in the entire NFL from when he came into play. Last season, the accuracy improved just a little bit, but it was still not ideal. I believe it was around 61% last year, and then a tremendous upgrade from last season to this season. You do get AJ Brown, so obviously that helps a lot. Devonta Smith developing as well his second year. There's a little bit of chemistry already there. The offensive line from him, again, that helps a lot, but he's doing what he needs to do, and I only expect more out of him. I expect him to get more comfortable throwing the pocket. I don't know if there's anything that he's going to be able to do to his lack of arm strength. I don't know if that's something you can fix, but I feel great about Jalen Hurts. I trust Nick Sirianni. There's a lot of question marks around him. Is he just a free rider who's gotten this great roster that we've seen in times in the past where the Buccaneers aren't getting it done, and then in steps Gruden or Dungy, which I forget which way around it was, and they win a championship? Is that what happened here with Sirianni, where Doug Peterson built up a pretty good roster, won a Super Bowl with it, had one bad year, made really one bad decision, and benching Jalen Hurts, losing the locker room, and he's now fired? Nick Sirianni, no. I don't think it's fair to say that he's just walked in and just riding the coattails of the team, because we've seen a lot of talented teams not win championships. Is he the best coach in the league? No. I still think probably Kyle Shanahan is. I think a lot of people sold their stock on Sean McVay. Bill Belichick, he hasn't adjusted a lot in recent times, but he's still a fantastic coach. But I think Sirianni, the job he's done cannot be understated. He made the decision to stick with Jalen Hurts instead of going out and pursuing Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson. He made that decision. The decision to bring in AJ Brown. I'm sure it was a collective decision, but the head coach and the GM, they get the blunt of the blame. They get the blunt of the credit as well. He made the decision to style the offense around what Jalen Hurts does well. A lot of option plays, those QB sneaks, which I wouldn't be surprised if it got banned, but as of now, they're not. So use them. Those QB sneaks have been working tremendously. Getting AJ Brown, Devonta Smith open, knowing you do have some issues with Jalen Hurts' accuracy. Sirianni's built up this team almost perfectly, even though, again, he had a lot already there in play for him. Jalen Hurts, I think, is only going to get better. I think you're going to find a way to bring some guys back. I think you find a way to bring back Miles Sanders. Fletcher Cox, probably not. I think Robert Quinn, you could find a way to bring him back. He's 32 years old. Fletcher Cox also 32 years old, excuse me. Brandon Graham's going to be 35 by the time the season starts. Jason Kelsey is going to be edging on 36. Bradbury's going to be 30. There's talks of him leaving. Linval Joseph, he's going to be 35. There's some old guys, but this also means opportunity for youth. They do have 2 first-round picks, if I'm not mistaken. I know they have the Saints' first-round pick, so that's 2 good players. They've drafted well. I expect them to continue to draft well. Howie Roseman has been an impeccable GM. The deals he's found in trades, and then, maybe he missed on getting Justin Jefferson and got Jalen Reagor. Yeah, but he hit the nail on the head getting Jalen Hurts. So if he can continue to draft as well as he has, as well as Sirianni's coaching as well as he has, and as well as Hurts is playing quarterback as well as he has, I don't think there's a lot to worry about when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles.